After a 2-year interval due to the COVID pandemic, Model Rail Scotland has returned to the major show scene in Britain at its home in the Scottish Event Campus in Glasgow. This video features various scale layouts. This 009 scale layout is Bron Hebog, exhibited by David and Rob Waller. Bron Hebog is a model of Bethgelert Station depicted around 2009-2010 when the railway was reopened from Rideau through Bethgelert and through the Aberglaslyn Pass to the south. It is more than just a model of Bethgelert Station and encompasses the first of the famous 1 in 40 S-bends climbing away from the north into the Bethgelert forest, and to the south the layout also features Goat Tunnel and the notorious Bridge to Nowhere, a relic of the ill-fated Porthmadog, Bethgelert and South Snowdon Railway. The finished layout is huge by 009 standards, with trains truly running through the landscape. The station itself with its passing loop is being built to scale, and the platform can accommodate an authentic length rake of 12 carriages behind one of the monster NGG16s. The layout measures 20 feet by 10 feet across 14 boards and requires 3 operators. All buildings are scratch-built scale representations of rail buildings. Track is Pico with analogue control. Stock is 90% scratch built with some kits. My thanks to Rob and David for the information. Clackmannan Goods, exhibited by Blythe and Tyne Model Railway Society and modelled in P4. We are transported back to the twilight months of wagon load traffic in a small yard during the mid-1970s. The sort of scene that could be seen around the country at a time as the rail freight continued its downward spiral. The yard is fictional, but is imagined to be on the site of the Caledonian Railway Goods Yard in Alloa. The main traffic flows are domestic coal, grain for the local breweries and sundries, but just about anything can turn up. Wagon building is my main area of interest, so I like to build a lot of variations into the fleet, with even similar wagons having significant differences in detail, such as axle boxes, buffers and of course weathering. Locomotives, as you would expect on a 1970s Scottish layout, are mainly small Type 1 and 2s, although occasional larger locos will pay a visit. The track was designed as it would have been laid in the Victorian era, and then thought was given to how, over the years, amendments and relaying would have changed things, ending up with a real mishmash of track types and styles. I couldn't quite justify a section of flat-bottom track in a 1975 goods yard, but I've got an idea for the next layout. Control is by DCC using a Rocco multi-mouse, with all locos being fitted with sound decoders, and point control is by servos using Megapoints controllers. Cadhay Sidings, displayed by the East of Scotland 4mm group and modelled in P4 gauge. Cadhay Sidings is a Southern Railway layout set around 1930 and built to P4 standards. It models the Sidmouth branch in the East Devon countryside with an imaginary set of sidings installed at the rail Cadhay crossing to serve a couple of industrial plants. There is plenty of movement with the sidings always in shunt, and various branch line trains travelling along the running line. There is a train magazine type fiddle yard at each end. The layout is worked with single line token, bell signals, block instruments and full signalling. Viewers can listen as a train is offered and accepted between signal boxes, then watch the points including FBL signals, including the ground signals, and crossing gates move before the train makes an appearance. We operate to a visible speeded up clock with a scrolling matrix displaying the timetable information, so train spotters can see when the next train is due. Look out for this display at the layout midpoint to the left of the signal box. A day's timetable containing some 35 moves takes roughly 2.5 real hours to complete. The south left end fiddle yard is operated visible to the viewing public and allows operation of the block instruments and bell signals to be viewed in close detail. Track work is hand built using X-Acto scale components and ply sleepers. The locomotives are either kit built or ready to run bodies with a scratch built chassis, and all locos are DCC sound equipped. Rolling stock is a mixture of scratch or kit built with the occasional ready to run rewheel. AJ couplings are used throughout. The layout is controlled via DigiKey's DR5000 with Digitrax and Lens handheld controllers, and using a Merg C-Bus to control points, signals and block instruments. Oldshaw, presented by Guy Molyneux, Mike Hale and Tom Harwin, modelled in EM gauge. Oldshaw is an EM gauge 4mm layout built by Andrew Bartlett and now owned by Guy Molyneux, Mike Hale and Tom Harwin. The layout depicts a small station and nearby factory and sidings on a Western Region branch line in the mid-late 1980s. As built, the layout was designed with one fiddle yard, but we have built 2 new fiddle yards so that the layout can be run with through running. Splott, exhibited by Paul Spencer and modelled in P4. Splott is a fictional representation of a small transfer yard named after the local suburb of Cardiff, located next to Cardiff Tidal Sidings and Tremorfa Steelworks. The model aims to showcase the variety of freight stock and locomotives seen in the South Wales area around that time. The track work is built to 18.83mm P4 track gauge and utilises DCC to control the locomotives. The points are controlled by conventional switching. The layout uses the Dingham automatic uncoupling system together with electromagnets below the track. Most of the structures on the layout have been handmade using plastic sheet, styrene profile sections or specially designed etch brass components. Detailed parts come from a variety of sources, including Europe and the USA. Locomotives have been detailed using extreme etchings detailing parts, and much of the stock is either scratch built or heavily modified. This O-gauge layout is Coeur d'Alene, exhibited by the Perth Model Railway Group. The Coeur d'Alene Railway is an O-scale narrow gauge model set in the state of Idaho, USA in the 1930s. It depicts how a line might have been built to serve the Coeur d'Alene Lake area via a depot at the small town of Rockford Bay, incorporating a ferry terminal with tugboat and barge. Although fairly remote, the area has some mining activities and a coal loading facility is included. The scale of the model at 1/4 inch to the foot follows American O-scale standards, using Pico narrow gauge track. Rolling stock is mostly Bachmann, with some locomotives from other suppliers. Stock has been lettered using bespoke dry transfers. Structures on the layouts are mostly scratch built, often using timber or plywood. A couple use modified kits, whilst the large factory uses design preservation plastic modules. The passenger depot has a ply base, then prototype scale timber planking was added. Details such as doors and windows, chimneys and roof shingles are by Grant Line. Back scenes are by Walthers, and the tugboat is an anonymous, probably Chinese model, which nevertheless fits the requirement. Traffic on the CDA railway is primarily freight, lumber to the sawmill and other log products hauled by typical logging line geared locomotives such as Shays and Climaxes. Empty coal cars come in, are loaded and then taken out by the larger locos, including a mallet originally from the Uintar Railroad. Freight cars come in and out from the outside world via the ferry, and a limited passenger service is provided.